So overshadowed by the utter chaos and insanity of the week is the fact that Democrats shocked everybody by winning both of the Senate races down in Georgia. They now will have control of the Senate. What is that going to mean?
Completely insane. All right, joining us now to discuss all this, founder of Daily Poster and editor-at-large of Jacobin, David Sirota. Great friend of our show. Good to see you, David.
Thanks for
joining us.
Thanks for having me.
David, lay out the political implications of this, and you are always the man with the encyclopedic knowledge of what are the things that they have promised to do that you're going to be looking forward to them to actually fulfill, and what are some of the things that you think will become central litmus tests and fights now that there is narrow control of the U.S. Senate?
Well, two things. First, the most immediate, which is $2,000 checks. I mean, the Georgia Senate candidates campaigned explicitly on that. And I would argue that was a big reason why they ended up winning. The whole standoff, I think, was bungled by Mitch McConnell. He dug in, opposed it, essentially helped manufacture an issue for the Democrats to explicitly campaign on with a very, very crystal clear message. Vote for me and you get $2,000 survival checks. So that's got to be the first and foremost thing that the Democrats deliver, and they clearly have the power, will have the power to do that. I think the second thing is a public health insurance option. I mean, the Democrats have campaigned across the country on that. All of the major Senate nominees in 2020 campaigned in support of some version of a public health insurance option. So whether that moves forward or not is another sort of test of whether the Democrats are going to follow through on their most basic promises. And then finally, I think in the first month or two here, there may be an effort to invoke the Congressional Review Act, which the Republicans did when they came into Congress and into power in 2017. And that act basically allows Congress to look back at recently passed rules and regulations from the outgoing administration and to repeal them, to kill them. It's much harder after that 60-day window. Republicans repealed a number of Obama-era rules when they came into power in 2017, and Democrats will be in the position in 2021 to get rid of some of the Trump administration's last-minute rules on the environment, on health care, on labor rights, and the like.
Yeah. And David, it seems likely the legislative filibuster, at least for now, is going to remain in place with Democrats, really having a tie in the Senate with Kamala Harris being the tie-breaking to give them the majority. Joe Manchin has already said, no, I'm not going to go there. So unlikely that that goes away. However, there are a number of things that you can do through budget reconciliation. Seems to be that the $2,000 checks, for example, could be done through budget reconciliation, which means you only need a majority vote. How much power does that give them? How much wiggle room do you have within that process?
I think that there's a lot of power to do, for instance, the two things I just mentioned, which is the $2,000 checks and a public option. The public option as a reconciliation measure actually came up back in 2010 when they were debating Obamacare. And it's lost history now, but the Democrats had a chance to try to use reconciliation to move forward a public option, and they actually refused to even try. Now, the argument back then, when their refusal to even try, was that if we reopen the Affordable Care Act debate, it will allow the Republicans to put poison pills into the legislation. And I think that's an important thing to remember. The whole notion of we can't reopen things or we can't push things because the Republicans may use their power to try to add bad things onto legislation, I feel like that's going to be an argument you're going to hear a lot. And whether it's an honest argument or it's a disingenuous argument, I think we'll have to see on example by example. You may see the Democratic leadership saying, "Oh, no, we can't bring this up because we're afraid that the Republicans might mess with it." When in fact it may at times be the Democratic leadership doesn't actually want to bring the thing up that we're talking about.
Yes, they have many ways of getting out of doing things that people actually want them to do.
Yeah, that's
never underestimate the willingness of the Democrats to say they can't do something when, in fact, they actually don't want to do something.
That's the real question, though, I'm having, David, which is that, doesn't this kind of remove a lot of their excuses? Or how about this as a question? What are the new excuses going to be about why you can't do something?
Well, yeah, right. And that's one thing that the Democratic Party is very innovative on. They're very creative in coming up with ways to not do things. And look, I think you'll hear, oh, we can't get through a filibuster. This may, if we bring this up for a vote, we'll lose some of our caucus, our own caucus, as if that's not the responsibility of the Democratic leadership to make sure that those caucus members are voting in line, right? I mean, you were going to hear, oh, we can't get Joe Manchin, or oh, we can't get John Hickenlooper, or oh, we can't get any number of conservative Democrats to support something, and therefore we don't want to have a vote on things. And I think that's going to be the trick here, which is there's been this discussion in general about forcing votes. And I think what you may end up seeing is that there are things that the Democratic leadership will say can't pass because Republicans will be opposed and some conservative corporate Democrats would be opposed. And they won't want to hold an actual vote on those things to actually see whether that's true. Because I would argue that in certain situations, that if you do force a vote, you actually force the conservative Democrats to actually support your policy. One example, to go back to where we started, the $2,000 checks. When that debate started, Joe Manchin was saying, I only want $600. I'm against even moving to $1,200. Well, you know what? I don't know how Joe Manchin's going to vote when you put $2,000 checks on the floor. My guess is he may. I don't want to. You never know with Joe Manchin, but he may vote for $2,000 checks.
Yeah, I mean, you saw Joe Biden move on this issue. He was not for $2,000 checks to be. He supported, and you did all the great reporting on this. He convinced Democrats to go with the initial crappy version of the deal that had $0 checks. And once he realized he was under pressure, realized it's a great political issue, he jumped right on board with it. So votes give you the opportunity to put pressure on legislators. The other thing that's going to be different is Bernie Sanders is slated to be chair of the Senate Budget Committee. Why does that matter, David, or does it matter?
I think it matters. I mean, the budget sets up the framework for what Congress can spend in a given year, and having somebody in as budget chairman who, for instance, has been a critic of bloated military budgets, who has pushed for much more robust spending on social safety net programs. That allows him to have a significant role in shaping the overall budget parameters year by year of what Congress ultimately passes in terms of federal spending. And also obviously that'll play a role in budget reconciliation, because that's the whole budget process. So I think it's a very significant thing. And again, I think it's particularly significant in an era where I think we have to be on the lookout for budget austerity, potentially coming from the Biden administration. Joe Biden has been a kind of pay-go budget austerian for much of his career in public life. And so pushing back on that, making sure that we're not living through an economic emergency and the administration and the government is championing austerity, which is the exact opposite kind of thing that you want to be doing at that point. Having somebody in the budget chairmanship to make that case that budget austerity is particularly wrong right now is really important.
Yeah, I'm sure Senator Sanders is thrilled to be working hand in glove with likely OMB Director Neera Tanden. Dave,
I can't wait for those confirmation hearings.
David, great to see you. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you.
Coming up, we're going to discuss the president's recent promise for a peaceful transition of power. A little late on that front with Irami Osei Frimpong. That's when Rising continues.